So, good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's guest photographer session. Hi, Emily. I know you're there.
Hi, Jay.
Excellent. How are you, love? Okay?
Yeah, I'm good. If a little bit nervous because you told me how many people are registered.
As I told you before, just pretend it's just me, but it's not. There's lots of people on. It's great to have you back. It seems like an age because obviously we've been working together for quite a long time now. And as I said, we had you in the magazine last month, and you blew me away with that. So that's why I needed to give it another hard plug just now
Thank
because it was
you.
a beautiful article. I knew you were. I remember the first fine art shoots you were doing, but you've taken it to another level, which is fantastic. And I know that isn't really what we're going to be talking about tonight, but the guys definitely need to go and check that out as some inspiration and to aspire to those sort of things as well. But this, I know we're revisiting sort of topics that we visited in the past, but it's been a few years now, and this was a massive request to bring you back for sort of how to get into the equine and how to plan the perfect shoot. And of course, let's not forget, in case people don't know, is that we're going to do it again next week, and we're going to be looking more at the business as well. But we'll talk a bit more about that at the end. But for people who haven't heard of you, Em, just tell us a little bit about how you sort of got into the equine photography.
Yeah, so it was back, I suppose, I mean, when I was maybe 16 years old, started to enjoy photography, managed to photograph my uncle's 60th birthday, and then actually that particular event, my batteries went dead. I ran out of card space. It all went hideously wrong, but I certainly was hooked from that point onwards. And I I went about finding an equine photographer specifically, actually, that would let me shadow him. And I was lucky enough on my first day to photograph the Royals playing polo. And the chap that I was shadowing, he actually offered me a job. And I started to work for him every weekend. And then it just went on and on and on. And I broadened my horizons, went and did weddings and portraits and parties and all the social stuff. And then actually I came straight back to equine because that's my thing. That's the area that I love. And I managed to specialize in equine photography and carve a career for myself and make a good living just from doing equine portraiture. And so I've done that for many years. And then coming up to kind of wanting a family and knowing that I was going to have less time to put into my photography, I started to produce a fine art collection of equine work that I could sell, to interior designers or commercial businesses and have private collectors all over the world. And so I've really been working hard on that for the last sort of 5 years or so. But the equine market, just it's amazing, and if you're into it, I love the fact that horses being my passion, photography being another passion, I've been able to marry the two, and that's what I do for a living. I literally couldn't ask for any more. So it's been a wonderful journey, and it's just very exciting now as well that actually so many people want to learn from my experiences and what I've learned over the years, and that I'm happy to be able to pass that knowledge on.
That's
So
brilliant, and obviously since we've met you, we've loved working with you, and hence why we keep bringing you back, which is fantastic. And of course,
thank
this is what you specialise in now with the training barn. Obviously, you do teach and mentor, the business as well as the photography of
yeah,
equine. I know we're
yeah.
going to talk about it a bit more at the end, but Emily's got a great opportunity with a competition with you at the end of the webinar, guys. So stick with us, and of course, we'll share all of that information via the links and everything. So I'll share all the links for you for the training barn as well via the chat panel tonight. So I think we're as good to get going. If you're good for me to hand you the screen, are you happy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. So, guys, I'm just going to hand the screen to Emily, and just a quick reminder, obviously, please use that question panel to put your questions through for Emily. Emily, you should be getting the request to share your screen, and I'll let you know once I can
Yeah.
see it. There we go. I'm seeing it in full screen mode. I can hear you loud and clear. So I'm going to go quiet. Please feel free to ask me, if you do need a break and a breather and you want some questions answered, I'll have them ready for you. If not, as I
Okay.
said, we've got plenty of time at the end, but it's all yours, Em.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I am really excited. And I just, for those people that don't know anything about me, I just wanted to give you a really quick snapshot of who I am. So I'm coming up for 35 years old, which feels a bit scary, but I've always been a horsey girl. I learned to ride from a very young age and had ponies and horses growing up. But I live in the New Forest, which is obviously a beautiful area of the country, and we have many wild New Forest ponies around us. So it's a constant source of inspiration for me. I obviously live with my husband and my two children, and I've got a wonderful support network, a family who really have believed in me as a photographer and building my career as a photographer, and that's been so helpful. I've got a really nice little studio. It's just a little kind of outbuilding next to my house, and that's where I work. And I'm a very outdoorsy person. I love being in the outdoors. I love walking. I love cycling, hiking. I've got my vegetable patch, which I love doing. Growing my own veg and whatnot. So that's a little bit about me. And like I said earlier, I started my photography career right from being quite young, and although I did have a few other little jobs, just ones, tiny little ones when I was kind of growing up, I actually was lucky enough just to pick photography and go for it. So I've been very, very lucky. So equine photography is, like I say, one of those wonderful areas that if you're really passionate about horses, I don't think you could get a better job to photograph them. It's something I have to pinch myself most weeks, thinking I'm so lucky to be able to do this. But it takes a certain skill to be able to actually make money from equine photography. You need to know what you're doing. You need to know how to prepare your clients. You need to know how to target the right clients. And this is something over, I mean, I say I've been a photographer for 15 years, but I think I've been saying that for a few years now. So I think we're nearly at 20 years. So 20 years worth of experience. I have worked out those finer details. And if you're maybe starting out in your equine photography journey, or you're a seasoned pro, you'll understand that knowing horses is an important part of it, but in actual fact that's probably only 20%. It certainly helps, but there's a lot of other things that you need to understand and be able to execute in order for you to make a living from equine photography. So the photo shoot, of course, is the most important thing. This is where you're going to take this amazing set of images that is going to blow your clients away and encourage them to spend lots of money with you, which in turn means you can carry on doing equine photography for lots of other people. So going through a photo shoot, start to finish, I'm going to walk you through how I would do a photo shoot and how I'd prepare my clients and how I'd make sure that I come away with those images that I need in order to make a good sale. So top of my list always is preparation. Not only do you need to prepare your kit, make sure your camera batteries are charged, you've got enough card space, and I have made a few mistakes in that department before. I have to say, like I said, at my uncle's birthday party, my batteries went flat within the first 10 minutes of shooting, so that was a bit awkward. I have turned up to a shoot with no cards at all in my camera bag, which also is a little bit awkward. I have lost an entire job because I didn't back it up properly and my laptop failed. And so all these things I've learned and managed to put systems into place to make sure that they don't happen. But Preparation as far as the client's concerned, I would always speak to them a couple of days before, run through very important things like directions, making sure you know how to get there, any gate codes. The chances are most horsey yards are in fairly rural locations, so sometimes phone signal is bad. So you just don't want to, you know, if these clients have paid you to come and take their photographs, you don't want to be arriving late, you don't want to be arriving in a panic. So it's really important that you nail down all those important details before you arrive at the photo shoot. The other thing I talk to them about is clothing. Again, an important point. It's down to personal preference, but I have always said to my clients, I don't want any jodhpurs, no riding gear. The reason being that 95% probably of my clientele all compete. And so they have got event photographs of them and their horse done up in their jodhpurs, you know, smart jackets, etc., etc. And that's not what I photograph. That's not what I do. I want to take photographs that show them in their home, connecting with their horses as they would on a daily basis. And so the advice I give regarding clothes is that bring a variety, but I mostly want 3 different outfits, and I want a casual outfit, casual smart, and possibly something smart. So color-wise, I say always to keep a fairly neutral palette. I always give the example, if we're in a woodland and you have a bright green, yellow and pink patterned t-shirt on, you know, in the photograph, our eye is going to be drawn to that t-shirt. So it's best that you wear more neutral colors, be it country colors, no big patterns. I always like accessories, so hat, scarf, gloves, jewelry, personally. And as a photographer, you need to understand your own style and the things you like to see, because your clients will ultimately hire you for that. So if you like patterned clothes and crazy colors, and your clients love that as well, then that's what you're going to go for. But in my scenario, I like, as you can see actually in this image, just a nice pair of jeans, nice top, looking quite casual but smart. So I always talk a bit about that on the phone. Makeup, like to keep it fairly natural, but make sure it's done as same with the hair. So when it comes to the horse, I always talk about the tack. Now, anyone who knows horses will understand this. Some of you that maybe don't know horses so well, they have a bridle and a saddle, and then they have head collars. And so I would always recommend that they have either a black or brown bridle that is nice and clean, and a black or brown head collar with a nice plain lead rope. Now, that doesn't always materialize, but at least I've said it, and if they have it, they'll use it. So it's important that both the owner and the horse are prepared well. Obviously, most clients will bath their horses the night before, keep them nice and clean in the stable overnight, and then they're ready for the photo shoot the next morning. Many clients ask me about whether they need to plait their horses. I personally prefer them not plaited, again, because they usually have photographs from events where the horses are plaited up. So the key to making good sales as well is variation. And that's why I ask for the different bridles and the head collars and the different clothes. Because what I do is break up the photo shoots into 3 sections, and I'll run through those 3 sections in a minute. But the overall feeling absolutely has to be a positive experience for your clients. They can feel quite stressed, quite nervous, and when they're dealing with a horse that maybe is not behaving and they want to get these nice photographs, it can become stressful quite quickly. So it's really important as a photographer that you are able to help calm and relax your client and the horse going through the photo shoot. But the other thing that's super, super important, one on the phone call before and also at the photo shoot, is that you prepare them for the viewing of the photograph. And that will be just dropping a seed. So saying, you know, once we've done the photo shoot, I'll go back to the studio, I'll process the images, and then I'll invite you to the studio for the viewing. Or if you don't have a studio, you know, I'll arrange to do a viewing with you. And that's where you'll decide what images you would like to purchase. Now, that's a really important point. You have to keep dropping that seed. You have to keep reminding them that that is the end goal. You're not taking the photographs just for them to look at them and like them. You're taking them for them to look at them and ultimately purchase them. So I always start my photo shoots on the yard. I like, when I arrive at the yard, I'll obviously say hello, get a cup of tea. But I like to do a location scout. So we'll walk around and find some different areas that I can photograph in, and I'd take a notebook and I'd write down, for example, stable, driveway, rickety gate, field with long grass, woodland, and they're all my locations that I know I've got in my back pocket so that I can keep the photo shoot just flowing nicely. Now, starting on the yard, it's a place where both the horse and owner don't feel any pressure. They spend most of their time there, you know, on a day-to-day basis. So it's lovely to be able to start in a place where they feel comfortable. So there's always multiple options, and I'm going to show you here on the next slide where there's lots of different things you can do in a stable. Excuse me, I'm just going to have a quick sip of water. Yeah, so there's lots of different things you can do in a stable, and it's a very safe environment. It's a very safe environment for the horse and the owner to be, because like I say, they spend a lot of time there. So it may be that you start with the door closed, and you can see in this bottom middle image, the pony has just a black head collar on, which looks really nice. There's no lead rope attached, and I've used the rickety stable. There's a lot of rust. It's got beautiful stone and brick and a lovely green frame, and that's nice to include. But if you then want to shoot something closer, for example, on the left-hand side there, the lady with the horse, you know, you can zoom in nice and tight, and you actually don't need to see any of the outdoor of the stable. And because you have beautiful directional light, providing the sun isn't falling directly on their face, any stable will give this beautiful black background and nicely lit from the front. So I would do a variety of things, crouching down. You can see top right image here. We were lucky enough to have a nice shelf where the owner could sit and just cuddle with her horse. So some of the things just to remember when you're photographing people who own horses, they like to talk to their horses constantly. They'll be saying, oh, good boy, that's it, good boy. Now, if you've ever come across this, you'll have taken a beautiful photograph and they've been saying good boy. And if you say good now, you can see that if you actually click the camera at that point, it's not a pretty face. So I always say to my owners that there's 3 or 4 things that I always say. Keep smiling. Don't talk to your horse, so just keep smiling. Relax your hands. Keep your reins nice and tidy, and shoulders back. So I will repeat that a lot throughout a photo shoot, and you can see the majority of the time my clients are either standing up straight, smiling nicely, they've got relaxed hands, and that really adds to the photograph, because what you'll find is if an owner is pulling on their horse's mouth, but by nature the horse is excited or pulling, and the owner is pulling to stop the horse walking or walking out the stable, it just doesn't look pretty. It's not very nice. So you can see here from my next slide that you can find bits around the yard. There's lots of my images are actually quite close in, and that's because people want me, or I certainly have carved an area for myself about really capturing that connection between a horse and their owner. And so I would only have to find a very small area, for example, the top left, where there's some foliage. You know, that foliage, maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I can't really remember, but the foliage didn't need to go on any longer. So, you know, maybe that's 2 meters worth max, up and down and side to side. So there's a fairly small area, and actually it looks beautiful because it's just got a nice texture. It's not too distracting. It just, that's my style. I love that foliage in the background. And so actually you can find, as you see bottom right, just areas of nice texture, walls, colorful walls, foliage, whatever it might be, around stable yards everywhere. So I'm always on the lookout for that. So when you've finished on the yard, actually just to give you another idea, for example, on a yard, there will usually be a mounting block, and quite often they're like nice old stone mounting blocks, and they might have a nice old brick wall behind them, and that's another good place to photograph on a yard. So stables, my first option, mounting block or a rickety gate. You'll find areas when you're doing your location scout that will be perfect, and you can use that time in the stable, in the stable yard, to capture quite a lot of images. And the other thing to remember is that if I'm in the stable, or the horse and owner in the stable, and I'm photographing them, I'm probably coming away with 10 to 15 different images from that one location. So they'll be crouching, they'll be leaning on the stable door, I'll take a wide shot, I'll take close shots, they'll be looking at the horse, they'll be looking at me. There's so many different variations, and they'll be in one set of clothing. So then we go, okay, we're going to go a bit further afield, we're going to go out and about, and we're going to find some other locations, and we're going to have a change of clothes. But it is very important that you always think about the safety of the horse and the owner first. Some horses are a bit of a nightmare. Others are so easygoing that it doesn't really matter where you go. But above all, you've got to make sure that the owner understands if they need to deal with their horse because it starts to get a little bit frisky or it's getting a bit scared of something, that the photography thing doesn't matter. I always say to my clients, look, you just do what you need to do. So if I ask you to stand in a position and your horse isn't liking it, don't worry, just do what you need to do, walk it in a circle, you know, go to a different location, that's fine. Don't worry about me. I'll just see what happens. And reading a horse's behavior and understanding the subtleties of when a horse is either scared or anxious or a bit nervous, or actually he's just feeling a bit worried, is useful to have and useful to understand, because you can then, you know, how far to push it. And you know, if you've got a scared horse, there's no amount of pushing that horse into this location that's going to make a nice photograph. Whereas if you think the horse is just a little bit worried, and you can sense that and you can see it in his eyes and in his ears, then you can go, okay, I'll tell you what, let's just walk him around in a circle, let him settle for a minute, and then let's try again if you think it's worth it. But that comes with experience and doing lots of photo shoots. If you've got a horse that is a little bit more lively, I definitely would put a bridle on it when you're going out and about. And when I mean out and about, I mean like the fields around the yard. It might, depending on how big the yard is, you know, some yards I go to, they've got hundreds and thousands of acres. And so we could be talking like a good 20-minute walk here if we wanted to. And so some horses are not as controllable with just a head collar on, and so the bridle might be important to put on. Change your clothes. Again, you might just want to adapt the first set of clothes. So you might want to add a jacket, a scarf, a hat. You might want to change the jumper, change the boots, but it's up to you and your client to work through that. So you can see here in this set of images, I love using natural frames. So I'm always looking for leading lines and areas that I can put my clients in, that be it, you know, maybe it's not, maybe it's not that country, but I can make it look and feel more beautiful and foliagey if I've just got a little bit of it that I can put around them. So actually in this top left image, you can vary to the left side, you can just see the edge of the road, and we're on quite a small bit of grass and we've got roads all around us, but because of this nice leading line, to the nice colors in the tree in the background, and the beautiful chestnut horse, you know, we don't really think about that. We just get a feeling of being in the country. And the bottom left and the bottom right, these two are in exactly the same locations, but you can see I've used different poses. So with one client, I may do one pose, another I might do another, but quite likely with both clients, I'll do both, depending on how the horses are reacting. Now, it might be that I've said, this lady in the bottom, Lisa, for example, I said, okay, just walk George in and let's see what he does. Now, he automatically then looked out to the left. And so I said, okay, just put your hands up on his neck and look at George and smile. Now that all happens in a matter of seconds, but you just need to wait. You need to be patient, wait for the moment to come. If the horse is jittery and not standing, then you need to be a bit quicker, but or maybe you don't even get the shot and you move on to the next location, but that's okay. But if you look at the middle shot, walking away down a path is always a nice one, and you just have to wait for the moment. So that horse will have been walking with its head straight in front of it, and then there just will have been a moment where he looked right, and you've got to be ready for it. And I will have shouted down the road, put your arm on his neck. So then I've got that connection between the owner and the horse. You don't have to shout, you know, put your hand on his neck, and there would have been a nice shot in that had she not. But for me, I'm always about the connection. And if you see in the majority of my images, that connection is really obvious. So you can see here again, just lots of different locations. Sitting on logs is always a good one, and there's always so many different poses you can do. It's not just this one shot that you do. You know, you move the horse, you move the owner, maybe she'll straddle the log, or maybe she'll cross her legs, and maybe the horse will come behind her or in front of her, and I'll go in close and I'll come out wide. And I'll always be trying to maximize every location I've got. Now, we're not always lucky with the lighting, and so for example in this top right image, if the lighting is harsh and not how I like it, I would always just ask the owner to look at their horse so that we don't get nasty shadows in the face, you know, in an unflattering light. So, and I think you can get away with it. To be honest, clients, they don't really care what the light is doing, and they don't really care what the light looks like in your images, as long as you've captured that emotion and relationship between her and her horse, or him and his horse. because at the end of the day, that's what they're commissioning you for. So here's some more images. Again, you can see gaits that, if you can find some nice gaits, it's always a bonus, because you can do lots of different poses on the gaits, be it leaning on them, sitting on them, come the other side and lean back on them. Gaits are lovely. I love gaits, and every yard has a gait. It's a very simple shot to do. Leaning is another one. Leaning on a tree, leaning on a wall, leaning on the gate, leaning on a stable. It's one of those easy poses where clients feel very comfortable. And if you notice the subtleties, so actually if you look here, all these owners, they have nice relaxed hands. They either cross their ankles, put their, one leg up slightly. They've all pretty much got nice bridles on. They're wearing nice clothes, quite relaxed. Obviously, bottom right, it wouldn't be my choice to have logos across clothing, but some clients are being sponsored by certain brands, so they like to have some photographs of that. But I can advise my clients what to wear, but I certainly wouldn't tell them they can't wear something. So, excuse me. You can see here too, I love these images, and this yard was quite difficult to photograph at. It was an interesting place. It was a lovely yard, but I had to really work to find these small areas. And interestingly enough, this is actually the neighbor's garden that I'm stood in. And so I always, on my location scouting walk, make sure that I ask the owner, where am I allowed to go, and where am I definitely not allowed to go? And they'll usually tell you, oh yeah, we're not allowed on Dad's lawn because he's mowed it, or whoever's mown it, and we're not allowed here or there or wherever. Or lots of clients like, yeah, we can go anywhere, wherever you want, Emily, it doesn't matter. And this client, I did spot this nice little wall and this nice little gate, and I said to her, oh, is that, are we allowed in there? She said, oh yeah, my neighbors won't mind. So I jumped over, and behind, on the left hand shot, behind this horse was an ugly building of some kind, and so it was never going to work straight on. But then I find this nice bush that I can put out of focus in the foreground, focus through, get that nice connection with the owner and the horse, and it's a beautiful shot, and she loved it. And so it's important that you really find things. I sometimes give myself a bit of brain ache because I'm trying hard to think of all the different angles, and can I go high, can I go low, if I just move myself 10 degrees that way, will I get a better shot? And so it's important that you spend time really looking. This is just another beautiful shot. You can see all the things I look for: something for the owner to lean on, nice bright head collar, clean lead rope, nice foliage in the foreground, foliage in the background. It's just a nice shot. So if you can get all the elements together at the same time, then it would be very difficult for an owner to say they didn't like the shot. So coming up with something special, many of my girls that have photo shoots, years and years ago, there was one girl who said, can I wear a dress on my pony? And I said, of course, let's go for it. So she put a dress on, we took some beautiful photos. I then put a shot on the website, and with that, everyone started to ask for photographs in dresses. And so it became a bit of a thing in my portfolio. All these girls wanted to get dressed up. So I would always leave this to the third kind of location, the third stage of the photo shoot. But it's very important that there's huge safety issues around this. And over the years, I have had a few times where it's been tricky. Things haven't gone to plan. We've lost horses. We've kind of had people on the floor and lots of various things. But every time something's happened, I've become more and more particular about the way I do these. And so initially, it's very important that I always insist that the riders wear a riding helmet to get on. I always ask, has your horse been ridden bareback before? Because it's a big request from my clients. Can I sit on my horse bareback with a dress on and hug him and do all this? So they always wear a helmet initially. We always do it in an enclosed space to start with, and there's always someone holding on with a lead rope to the horse. And I always spend a couple of minutes making sure that the horse is calm and relaxed and happy with, one, the owner on their back with no saddle, and two, that they're happy with the dress. So I like to keep it quick. My girls don't sit on their horses for longer than about 5 minutes. So I keep the shooting time really as quick as I can. But it doesn't always have to be on the horse. And you can see in this next picture, this couple, they had a beautiful old car. I actually couldn't tell you what it is, but it was beautiful. And they had multiple images with this car, and she wanted her dress and her heels on, and her horse looks really smart, and it's just a beautiful shot, and they were delighted with them. And it was just something a little bit special, a little bit different. So as a photographer, it's always nice to have a unique eye, a new unique perspective, and just to try things a little bit different to help your clients visualize something a little bit special. So you can see again from these next images, all my clients at the end of a shoot, I will say to them, is there anything that I haven't done that you thought I would do or that you would like to have done? And they all say, sit on my horse bareback and hug it. So you can see top right where I have asked, has your horse, do you sit bareback on your horse usually? And she said no. And I said, look, it's not going to make any difference. Let's keep your saddle on. I'd rather it was safe, and we will get a beautiful shot. And personally, I don't really think it makes that much of a difference to have the saddle on. I think this is a beautiful shot whether she had the saddle or not on, and I don't think it's a distracting element. So actually, I would rather go down that route than be worrying that there was going to be an accident happen. So it's important in these shots to make sure that they've got control of their horse. Again, sit on the horse first with a hat on, have someone holding him, and then I step back and take some nice shots. These two images side by side, I just put them in because they're a really nice example of a classic, what I would call a classic portrait. So the girls are really relaxed. They're stood by the side of their horses. I've asked for that connection. So I've asked Lisa to put her arm up on her horse's neck, or, you know, Georgina there just to scratch her horse's shoulders. They've both got their shoulders back. They're relaxed in their legs and in their hips, and they're smiling. Georgina's smiling straight at camera, and then I will have asked her to look at her horse and smile. And likewise with Lisa, she's looking at her horse, and then I would have asked for her to look and smile at me. And then I probably would have zoomed in nice and tight, did some nice tight portraits, and got them really close together. And then I probably would have come out and done a really wide landscape shot. So even the classic portrait, as I call it, you know, you still have a lot of variety with your cropping and your zooming in and out, but also you can do this pose anywhere and in every location you go to. You know, it doesn't just have to be a one-time thing, because they change clothes. We change bridles to head collars. We change things. And so actually this is a really nice pose to do. And depending on where the horse lands, it's very easy to take this shot. Jay, if you could click on, that would be great. So in the next shot, you can just see again, there's actually a lake in front of me. So I'm on my full 200 zoom. I just spotted these nice, all this foliage and how it feels kind of magically, you know, so I like to come a bit out so that I can show the landscape. And again, the owner is just now, actually, if you see this horse, you can see from his back leg that one of them is just resting a little bit, but actually it's like a semi-walk. Okay, so this horse wasn't 100% relaxed in this location, but he stopped to look at something. And so very quickly I said to Emma, shoulders back, look in the same direction as him and relax your hands. And that's exactly what she did within maybe 2 or 3 seconds. And I was then able to capture this image. You know, a second later, he swings his quarters round and it doesn't look like this. So you always have to be on the ball and waiting for the next moment. Jay, if you could flick on, that would be great. So these next images, you can just see lots of girls in dresses with their horses, enjoying being photographed out in fields, you know, just having a real nice time. And I always try and just get over that feeling that, you know, it's not natural to be in a dress, in high heels, leant up against a tree with your horse. It's just totally unnatural. But that's what my clients want. You know, they want this special photo shoot that's going to last a lifetime, that they're going to remember forever. And they want something a little bit different and a little bit special. And so that's what I help create for them. And the overall experience has to be so enjoyable that that turns into sales. And so, you know, if you see your owners getting stressed or a little bit het up, or the horses are, you know, starting to get a little bit fidgety, it's really important that you read those body languages, both from the owner and the horse. So it's always nice to end on something a little bit special for your clients, to just have that kind of finale, to be able to go, okay, do you know what? I've got loads of beautiful images. I think that's a wrap. And so, Jay, if you could flick on. My one kind of last thing to talk to you about is just having a few tricks up your sleeve. Polos are a winner. You've got to be a bit cautious because some horses get a bit nippy, so it's always important that you ask the owner first that it's okay to give polos to the horse. I always used to carry a little Tupperware box with some gravel, and I'd shake it. That always is sure to get the horse up. If it's, you know, the horse's head up with its ears forward. If a horse is a little bored, you want to move locations somewhere that it maybe knows a little bit less, it's a little bit less comfortable in, and that will spark some excitement from the horse, which of course gives nice images. You take them away from their friends, they start to, you know, their head goes up, they might neigh a bit, but that is when you capture some super beautiful horse images that are quite powerful. My favorite, of course, is to ask the client if they have a groom or someone that can help them to shake a bucket of nuts, and that's sure to get the horse smiling, if you like. And the other thing, even as a photographer, if the shoot is going wrong, you need to just keep smiling and say that it's going really well, because the experience for the client is absolutely the most important thing. And even if you feel terrified on the inside, it's super important to just relay that to the client, that you actually are totally in control, know what you're doing, and you are capturing beautiful images for them. So that brings me to the end. I can't believe how quickly that just went. And I know, Jay, you asked me to finish maybe a little sooner than that, but that time seems to whiz by. I could have spoken forever and ever about
Oh,
this subject because
it's
it
perfect
goes
time.
on, and
We,
there's.
we, we're going to be talking for a little bit longer, Em, because I have got a mountain of questions for you, love. So there's no
Oh,
problem.
have you? Okay, well, that's good. The other thing I just wanted to let everyone know about, I'm very excited. We've just launched a 1-year mentoring program for a group of 12 photographers. We've only got a handful of spaces left already. We actually only launched it about a week ago, and it starts in March. And if you go to the website again, you can go have a look, read through the content. This is about taking photographers that are absolutely dead serious about making this their career and making 2018 the time to turn around, where they're at in their photography business. And myself and Hannah, who works at the trading barn as well, are going to take you through from start to finish how to create a hugely successful equine photography business. We also have 3-day trainings. We've got one-to-one bespoke mentoring, got online videos. So we've got everything for everyone, basically. And I would appreciate it and love it if you all took a trip to the Trading Barn website and had a good dig around, see what might suit you. And I'd love to do some training with you guys soon. So that's all I've got to say. But like
No,
you
it's
say,
not. You
Jay,
haven't
if
gone
there's
anywhere yet. No.
okay.
So Em, I'm just going to get the question screen online, and then they're not in any particular order, I'm afraid. I've tried to sift
Okay.
them out, but we'll just have to go through them. There was a
Okay.
few. What's the words I was looking for? There's a few repeats. So, and the best thing was, and you've done it already. The best thing was there was about 1 million people said, "How do you get their ears up?" And you've just done it. So
Oh,
I've
okay.
managed to delete all of those out. So brilliant. Okay, I'm going to start with this. This is another one. There's going to be a few that we've had before, as we know, the sort of go-to questions. But
Yeah.
a lot asked tonight with regards to using Flash in any way.
Yeah, so I don't use Flash. I never have used Flash. I did have one training client who requested, could we try using Flash? And interestingly enough, this horse had been absolutely amazing the entire session, very easy to photograph, very laid back. We put the Flash kit up and it freaked out. We could not get a shot of it. And I like the look of Flash, but it's just not my thing. I know there are photographers that use Flash with horses. You have to be a bit careful because you need to make sure that your insurance covers you using Flash with horses. But from my perspective, I always use natural light, and yeah, just don't go near Flash.
So following on from that, then, so with regards to natural light, do you use any reflectors or anything like that at all if you need to?
Nope,
No.
don't use any of that. I'm actually literally the most untechnical photographer there is. I don't know whether you have a question about kit, but
We do.
okay. So I've always until recently shot on a Nikon, and used basically my 70 to 200 all the time. And I set my camera on aperture priority f 4.5 or 5.6, and ISO I will put up as high as I need, because the kit I've been using, the noise is not a problem. So I would easily shoot on 2500, 3000 ISO, and I literally stick with that and I don't move it because I don't want to be distracted. This is my personal thing, and I know lots of photographers like to change settings and whatnot, but my thing is I just want to focus on the horse and the owner, and so I keep it dead simple. One lens, one camera, one setting.
And that's a good point. I mean, most cameras today are exceptional at the high ISOs. So But again, obviously,
Yeah.
you can afford, isn't it? So then tips then, Em. Obviously, now we've established and we've cleared up that obviously it's natural light and everything so on. So in the shooting in the darker areas, in the barns and so on, is that picking the right time of day and catching the right area with the right fall of light?
Yeah, just finding nice directional light. So if you're in a barn, there'll always be barn doors, and so I would never stray too far from the barn doors or a big window where some nice natural light is flooding through. And so, just staying on those same settings. You might need to push your ISO a bit in that scenario, but generally speaking, I can stick on that same setting and shoot anywhere.
This was a good question. It's actually just come in, so I'm a bit disappointed. I didn't think of it, but now with the advances of the likes of continuous lighting and LED lighting, have you ever thought about that? Because that wouldn't startle the horses if you introduce it sort of slowly.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have never really thought about that, but it could work. I think you want to find a good model that, an owner that's got a fairly chilled out horse, test it, see how you go. I mean, horses, there are people that use flash with horses, and so you can absolutely do it. I just I, I don't know. I suppose my first few photo shoots that I ever did were really successful using natural light. My clients loved it. I made money from it, so I kind of kept to the same thing. I didn't feel like I wanted to experiment with flash, and so I just never have, because I've just got this formula that works for my clients, and so
And
yeah,
absolutely,
no,
and I think it's. I mean, obviously, you and we've been doing it. I've learned loads about equine and never shot a horse in my life over
yeah,
the years.
yeah,
But the key thing that we've stressed, is the importance is that these are animals, but they do get startled, and it
yeah,
is a danger, isn't it? So obviously,
yeah.
flashing light can startle anybody, never mind an animal. So you just have to be careful with that. Same as a reflector. A reflector will still give a flashing light.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have, being horsey and having owned horses, I have seen some pretty horrendous accidents happen without, you can be out riding on a horse and it will freak out at a leaf that blows under its feet. And anyone horsey on tonight will know that it's quite funny, because you could go walk past a monster and they don't even flinch, and then a little leaf blows between their leg and they freak out. So you can never tell what the horse is going to freak out or not. And some just won't even care that there are big flashes and, soft boxes up or whatever. And others just, as soon as you even bring the tripod out the back of the car, will freak out. So it's just all about, testing the water, going steady, making sure you're aware of the safety aspects.
Staying on the safety part of it, and again, I know this is a question we've had several times over the years. The shot specifically with the clients where they're not wearing helmets and they're on the horses, where do
Yeah.
you stand there with the insurance and what is the safety side of it? How prepared are we for these?
Yeah. So I have spoken with my insurance people at length and said, look, if uh, we have an accident on a photo shoot, the owner gets knocked off or knocked over and breaks a leg, the horse gets loose, runs into me, breaks my arm, then goes through a fence, jumps over a road, gets knocked over by a car. The worst case scenario, am I covered? And they've told me, yes, I am. So I think it's very important that you have that conversation with your insurance company and make sure that they understand that if this horse gets loose, runs away, breaks a leg, or any of the people involved in the photo shoot get injured, I mean, the chance of it happening are so slim. But I would say, I have been on a photo shoot before where we've lost a horse in the sea for 3 hours. It decided to swim to an oil rig, and that was a pretty scary time. I've had another horse run loose through a cornfield and we, you know, couldn't find it for an hour or so. Nothing that I specifically did in either of those cases, but I just need to know as a photographer that my insurance is watertight, and I know that if anything happens, I am covered. And so I will go to every length to make sure that the owner knows if they are not comfortable, if they feel that their horse is not comfortable, it doesn't matter, we'll do something else. So I probably cover my back a lot, but...
Well, no, it makes sense, absolutely total sense. And in that respect, people have asked, who do you insure with?
Williamson Carson. I've been insured with them for the last 20 years. They are brilliant.
Brilliant, excellent. Right, let's get them out of the chat panel before I get myself lost. I am lost already. Right, let's go back to the top. That's easier. Okay, I think you've kind of shown this, and this came on quite early. No, you've answered that one. That's about... Oh, they've missed the horse's ears. Gravel in a box to get the ears up. Was that right? Was it gravel in a tub? Did you say?
Yep. Yeah. Anything that shakes. So it might be a crisp packet. It might be I don't know, anything that you can rattle. It's just a noise, a different noise that the horse might not be used to hearing, and so they'll kind of look over in that direction, and that comes with ears forward.
Brilliant. Okay, so when we have the client in the shop with the horse, any preference on where you're having the clients look, or is it a bit of both depending on the shop?
Yeah, so again, variety is key. So I would always say to the client, okay, look at me and smile, click, click, click. Okay, look at your horse, click, click, click. Put your arm up on your horse's neck, big smiles, look at me again. So I'm just look in the direction the horse is looking, look over to your right shoulder, look back at me, and I'm clicking this whole time. And, you know, one thing that photographers sometimes struggle with is directing their client. They're nervous that they're going to get it wrong. And the most important thing for my client is that they feel like they know what they're doing. And the only way they feel like that, they're not professional models. They've probably not been photographed hardly ever before, except for, you know, on their mobile phone or whatever, is to direct them and tell them exactly what you want. And so I continuously tell them, okay, just drop your hands, relax your hands, that's it. Stand up nice and tall, big smiles, look at me. And I'm always talking to them.
Brilliant. How long approximately is an equine shoot, and what time of day do you normally start it?
Yeah, so it's changed over the years because before I had children, I had time to like drink lots of tea and eat lunch with my clients and stuff. So I used to turn up in the morning, we'd do an hour or so of shooting, we'd stop, have lunch, and we'd do another couple of hours after lunch. Nowadays, because I've got time constraints, I arrive at 9:30 and I'm finished by midday, done and driving out the driveway. So I always say to the client, allow a couple of hours, and I say some go over, some go under. It just depends when the horse starts to get tired and I've got enough, and you know, so it's usually around a couple of hours.
Brilliant. And oh, sorry, I lost my track there. I had one right followed up for that same. It's gone. I'll find it again in a minute. Does Emily shoot in the winter when the horses have their winter coats?
Yeah, good question. So my business historically has always run right up through autumn and then into December, which of course, so for the type of clientele I have, the majority of them have their horses clipped. And so they will gauge it that they do the horses clip enough that, you know, it's like a haircut. So it doesn't look great initially, and then maybe after a week it starts to look a little bit more natural. So I historically would always shoot up through to December, but then January, February, March, I always just felt like having a bit of time off anyway to kind of focus on the business and my goals and what I was going to achieve that year. So mostly not photographing with big fluffy hairy horses in the winter, but that's more down to the type of clientele I have, so the type of horse they have, because they're very much, you know, and they're most competition horses are rugged up, so that stops them getting so furry. But you know what? I would. If a client asked me to go and photograph their furry horse in winter, I absolutely would. Autumn is my favorite time to photograph, so I love it, during that
Brilliant.
period. Yeah.
Guys, just we've still got a lot more questions to ask, and obviously we have run over a bit. You're asking a lot of business questions. I'm not going to ask them tonight because that's exactly what Em and I are going to do next week with you guys. So tonight was all about the shooting, so I'm going to concentrate on those because obviously there are people who have asked us those questions. So please feel free to ask us questions about what we've talked about tonight, but we're covering the business next week. Okay, so it's next Thursday as opposed to next Wednesday. But we've got, and obviously the links are available on that as well. So there's a few asking, and the questions I'm sure Emily will be answering in her presentation next week. So they're fairly straightforward on that. How much editing do you do to a shoot? How long is your shoot editing?
Okay, yeah. So again, as I started to become much more business savvy and understand how much my time was worth, I would, if I shoot for an hour, I process for an hour, and that includes downloading, backing up, and doing the processing. So, for an average equine shoe, it would take me 2 hours to do the processing. I became very efficient at it. They still, they need processing. I would never show my clients straight out of camera, but I do not spend hours retouching a branch that is in the wrong position out of a shot before my client has purchased that shot. So I get them ready for viewing within those 2 hours. And then if my client goes, okay, I'm going to have that as a massive 30-inch frame, then I might spend another 5 minutes, processing again on it before it was ordered.
Brilliant. Your preference for editing then, Lightroom, Photoshop? What's your chosen preference?
Yeah, so everything goes through Lightroom, and that's what is ready for the viewing. And then once they are ordered, if anything extra needs doing, I would probably take it into Photoshop.
And obviously, I'm guessing, I know we haven't talked about it tonight, and obviously we touched on it at the beginning. Obviously, the sort of fine art stuff that you do as well. If the shoot's obviously a bit more fine art, I presume there's more editing time involved in that.
Yeah, that's a whole nother level of.
But we're going to do that. We've said, haven't we? We'll get these 2 webinars done,
absolutely.
and then we're going to visit that fine art. I wanted
Definitely.
you to share that with the guys anyway, so we'll do that real soon.
Yeah.
Handheld demo, or are you using a tripod ever?
No, handheld. Everything's handheld. Yeah.
Brilliant. And this came through a couple of times, so again, I think we'll be chatting about it next week, but I will ask this one. Roughly how many shots in a shoot compared to what you actually show the client?
Yes, so I would probably shoot around 500 images within those 2 hours, and then I would show the client anywhere between 80 and 120 images, roughly.
Brilliant. Excellent. Any tips on stopping a horse from eating during a shoot?
Yeah, don't take it near any grass if it's like a really greedy horse. If that I get that. If you're photographing a child with their pony, the chances are they're going to have no control over it eating grass. So I would try and stay away from areas where it's going to want to pull the child and eat grass as much as possible. And then having someone shake a bucket of nuts, and keeping it interested in the food. It might also be if you give the owner a polo in their hand, then you can keep the horse's head up and they're kind of interested in the owner as opposed to the grass. But I know that actually can be a bit of an issue depending on what horse you've got, but luckily it hasn't happened too many times for me.
Brilliant. And actually we're getting there. So look, any top tips for calming a horse, or do you leave that to the owners?
Yeah, so I wouldn't. I mean, the reason I'm on an 80 to 200 or 70 to 200 lens is because I actually like to stand back. I don't want to be on top of the horse and owner. So if the horse is a bit agitated, I'll often just say, look, because the owner is quite often fixated on standing where you've asked them to stand, and the horse might not want to stand there. And I can see them kind of pulling the horse, going, no, whoa, 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 stand here, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I'll say, look, don't worry, just walk a couple of circles, let him calm down, and then when you're ready, I'm going to ask you to come back to that position, and I want you to stop. And in the first 3 seconds that horse stops are going to be your best images. So I will say to the owner, walk the horse in a circle, just let's relax him. I'm going to ask you to turn in, stop on the spot, put your shoulders back, hold your hands nice and relaxed, look at your horse and smile. And that's when I'm going to take the shot. So if you've got a window of 5 seconds, it's okay, you've got the time because you've prepped the client as to what you're doing. And you know, you then would ask them to walk another couple of circles and then come back to the same spot and you can do another shot. So yeah, I don't get hands-on particularly with like stroking the horse and saying calm down, you know, but walking circles tends to help a lot.
Brilliant. I don't know if we've ever talked about this. So any advice for posing a horse with a baby?
For what with a horse?
Posing the horse with a baby.
Oh. Oh, okay. So, depending on what you mean, I mean, I've obviously photographed owners that have had babies in their arms with a horse. I mean, I would never, I have seen images of a baby on top of a horse. That definitely is beyond I would just be far too nervous that would all go wrong. So the only way I'd photograph a baby with a horse is in its mum or dad's arms and have the horse one side, the baby the other side, and maybe a cute kind of cuddly shot like that.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And the very last question, which I thought was great, and I saved it till last because it's, do you know what? We take things for granted. So I hope I pronounce it correctly, but Coralie or Coralie from Canada, is polo a candy? It's a mint. Yes, Coralie, it is.
Oh,
So
yeah.
brilliant, but that's our our ignorance, so we apologise. Yes, of course.
Yeah, sorry. It's a delicious, basically a lump of sugar that you would give the horse, and they love them. And unfortunately, being horsey, I also love them. So there's never usually a full pack at the end of the session, I have
Uh,
to say.
and I don't know what it is, Em. I've got 5 dogs, and a polo or a polo each will shut them all up. It's amazing. I
Oh,
just get the packet of polos out of the cupboard, and they
oh,
all go
hilarious.
quiet until they've obviously finished chewing their bone.
Oh.
But, but yeah, but I'm sure there's a Canadian or equivalent. The best way
Yeah,
I can describe them, I don't know if they even do them anymore. It's mint with a hole. It's a little round mint with a hole.
yeah,
They're very similar
yeah,
in shape and size to your I think it's still called the Lifesavers over there. Well, that might be American
yeah,
rather than Canadian.
yeah.
But yeah, it's just a mint. Horses do like their mints. Yes, there is supposedly the lifesavers. They're on the right track. Brilliant. Yeah, and Sam's just chipped in. I've got 14 dogs. I'm definitely going to try the polos on them. Well, it works for
Yeah.
me, Sam. It works for me. Excellent. Why don't you shoot in the evening? That's a good question. That is the last one before we go.
Yeah,
Just
why don't I shoot? Because I've got children and I want to be at home for them in the evenings. I have really over the years made sure that my business makes sense for what I want to create and how I want to create my lifestyle. So for me, I want to be able to drop my kids off at school, pick them up, and do bath, bed, whatever time. And so I just insist that my photo shoots are between 9:30 and 12 o'clock during the week. and
And
that's
that's
it.
and I get that, and that's fine. That's brilliant that you're able to do it.
Yeah,
Because I remember when we first started this, I think you might not have even had your, you would have had your eldest, I think. But obviously, we have talked in the past about using, the golden hour and stuff, and
yeah.
that's obviously planned. But yeah, brilliant. That's fantastic, excellent. Well, guys, obviously, don't forget. Well, there's already loads of thanks coming through the panel, so again,
Oh,
another
good.
fantastic presentation. Don't forget to go to Emily's site, thetrainingbarn.co.uk. Guys, thank you so much for being with us tonight.